Okay, I'm Betsy Burton, and I teach in a middle school. I have with kids that are struggling learners. Most of my students are very low performers. Many of them are failing in their content classes. So when they come to me, I know that I can teach and teach and teach, but I might not make a difference. So I wanted something that would help to change the way they look at themselves as learners. And I found that LinguaFolio was really a wonderful tool for that. So this is a little sketch of the way I want my students to be. I want them to be able to analyze, reflect, set goals so they can achieve. And this is the way my students come to me. They can't reflect enough to know whether they brought a pencil to class or not. So I started with LinguaFolio. First of all, I handed it out and I thought, well, this is going to be great. And my kids just started checking everything wildly. And so we had to kind of scratch the first LinguaFolio session. So then I realized I was going to have to change the way I teach. So in order to help them be able to interact with LinguaFolio successfully, I did some of these strategies. First of all, I decide on my topic that I'm going to teach, my reader topic. Then I choose focused areas in certain domains that I want to stress for that topic, and it may last 2 or 3 or 4 days. And they will have a binder that has ICANN Statements. So I wanted the students to start learning to analyze their own work. And in order to do that, I first would analyze their work according to certain types of linguistic mistakes that they were making. And I would sit down and have conferences with them and say, well, this you're doing really well, but this is a goal for you to do such and such and such. And I started talking to them using the language of LinguaFolio. Then as a group, we would analyze their work using rubrics to help them start figuring out what they were doing well and what they were not doing so well. Then they would partner to choose evidence for the LinguaFolio checklist. And those partners, I changed those around until I found a group of 2 or 3 kids that could work really well together, helping each other see their work, really see it. And then they would upload the evidence to their eLinguaFolio account when we could get to computers. Until then, they would keep it in their LinguaFolio binder. So for instance, if my topic would be atoms, I would have visuals and interactives to begin. And everybody would have a series of ICANN statements that had to do with the content and the literacy skill I wanted them to develop. And these are graduated from easy to hard, so that some students can only do the first ones, but my more proficient students were expected to go all the way to the end, maybe even do another one. This was one I did for cells. We interact with that, play games for a while, but all the while, every day, they're looking at their ICANN statements and trying to complete something having to do with that. This is one I did for volume, and I combined that with the cells. They were having to do a project about, I think this was, they had to build a plant cell model for an aquarium for a museum, and they had to figure out the volume to do that. And this group needed a lot of scaffolding, so I used like clothes exercises for them. And those were their ICANN statements that they had to do. Those are all on the table, so you'll have a chance to. Here they have rubrics. They were doing a biome project, and they were using ICANN checklists, trying to help each other complete those. Then they would use a rubric to assess their project. Then finally, they would put their projects on the board and have to present to the class. And all the students would assess, using the same rubric, would assess how well it looked, how well they presented, and how well their language came together to say what they wanted to say. And my rubrics are written very simply so that the kids can understand them, and they do a pretty good job of assessing these things. I was really surprised. In this case, they're doing the ICANN statements together and checking their work. And here they are actually looking at a LinguaFolio checklist, and they're looking at their work to determine whether or not they want to use it in their dossier. They did that as a group. And then finally, I used a lot of reflective tickets to help them say what they learned, what they didn't learn. And I will write a response ticket and put it next to their ticket and give it back to them the next day. And in a folder, we keep all those for a month. So it's like an ongoing journaling, but just with a sentence or two. So it's easy, it's doable. And I try to do that every day, but really about 3 times a week. We do the reflection tickets. And I try to build in other reflections, like after we do a lesson, they do a reflection on that lesson. They don't all look like this, but this is a sample. This is another student reflection activity. We do lots of this because otherwise they can't do LinguaFolio. If they can't learn to reflect on one piece of work, if they can't reflect on one lesson, they can't reflect on where they are in the language learning process. So we start out with baby steps, even with a checklist of, do I have my pencil today? Did I ask a good question? Did I respond to someone's question? And this they do every day. They have a checklist like that, and they give themselves a grade according to a rubric at the end of the week on how well they participated. Very basic. But all of these things help to build a skill I want, which is not to do an accurate LinguaFolio, but to be able to reflect upon their work, analyze their work, then finally to set goals. Because none of my kids knows how to set a goal. If you say, what are your goals? I want to learn English. Well, that's not a goal. So they have to learn to break things down, and I can't get them to do that unless they do it every day in some way. So if you would like, this is the way I set up their LinguaFolio notebooks, because as I said, we can't go to computers every day in my class. And then after they have done this kind of thing and they select their LinguaFolio artifacts, then when we do get to the computer, we already have those with a digital camera. We take a picture. They're already on a file in my documents. They go into the lab, and that's when they upload everything and do checking on the computer. But we have to do it here first, because otherwise I couldn't do it something every week. Every Friday is LinguaFolio Day, when we look through, we choose artifacts, or just discuss what they have and why they think it should be an artifact. Maybe not choose it, but just discuss it. So this is my timeline, and this is the last one I have. I had no idea we'd have this many people, but I'll put this up on the wiki. This is just a timeline for how I present the different aspects of LinguaFolio. And these are the ICANN statements, some of the ones that I've used. So you're welcome to take one of anything, just don't take the last one, so I can show them to someone. Do you guys have any questions? Because I told you a lot, but I only told you about one small part of LinguaFolio, really. They're the intercultural experiences, how do I learn, lots and lots of stuff to LinguaFolio. But what I'm telling you mostly is how I used it to help students become reflective. When they have their discussions about goal setting, I try to limit it to 2 or 3.
Okay.
Set 2 or 3 goals for what you want to do in the next couple of weeks. And then some of the things, well, let's say if a student has no idea how to punctuate correctly, and once he's finally figured that out, that might take all year. So I'll say, well, let's let this be a goal, but let's not put any evidence for that goal for a while until we really feel you're ready, until you feel you're ready to do that. And a lot of times they will put evidence up, as I said, before they're ready. But I don't ever tell them, no, don't do it. If their partner or someone in the group discussion doesn't say that, oh, you can't use this, I let them go ahead. And we'll still have those discussions about punctuation because remember, they're doing not only LinguaFolio, but they're doing work for each topic that I introduce. And in those discussions, I can be a lot more elaborate or specific about, well, you really did a good job of putting periods. But I think that sometimes you could even put more periods. If you read through this, I think that you could divide this up into sentences a little bit better. And then they'll go back and they'll work on that, and we'll continue. By the end of the year, they may say, you know what, I have a better evidence here for that thing that I checked off about periods, and then they'll just go and replace it.
Do you only use evidence from your classroom, or you allow them
Just
to bring
my
things from
classroom.
other classes?
Oh, no, they may.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's
Yeah, if they say, oh, I wrote a story in language arts, and they're always coming in to me and saying, Miss B, I really wrote a great thing, and so-and-so. And so I'll go get a copy of it. And they'll put that, now see in this notebook here, they will have all sorts of possible evidence, but they may not select all of it. I think I got mine.
So the folder shows the growth, but they don't, most of the time what you enter in because of your computers, they only put in their best work.
They put what they choose, and that usually is their best work.
But you see the growth in the notebook.
Yes, because this is not their total portfolio of all the work they've done that year. These are possible entries. So they've already gone through their work and chosen what they think is their best work. Then later they'll go through this and decide what would be a really good entry and choose the entry to upload. Yes, to upload. So it requires a lot of reflection just to go through their work and start thinking like that. Because most of my students, the only thing they can think about their work is, I did it, I got it done, or and maybe you got it, or maybe they forgot to even give it to you. It's still in their locker somewhere.
Now, if you had more access to the computers, say I have a classroom now that has enough computers for everybody. That's going to happen.
Go straight into LinguaFolio, and I wouldn't.
And you wouldn't do that.
I might do this in the beginning to get because you want to do it as a group, to get everybody into the mindset of what they're doing. But when you got into the process of really choosing what you want to upload, or doing the checklist, you ought to be able to do it right on the computer. So if I had access to computers, I don't think I would spend so much time in this notebook.
And would you, well, and my kids, because they're high school, they would do a lot of their assignments actually not writing, but actually typing it up on the computer if they chose to. So would you?
They could just go ahead and upload it right from whatever document.
So okay.
Yeah. I mean, but what I had my kids do is each one of them put a file in my documents. And they could, as they had time, they could go over and use my computer to upload stuff sometimes. Then when they wanted to put it on LinguaFolio, when we would all get on a computer, they could go into my documents and go into that file and choose it and upload it from there. So if they're typing something and they type something good, and you say, well, do you want to use that as evidence in your LinguaFolio? Then they could have a file that says LinguaFolio evidence. They could put it in there but not upload it yet, because later they might have something better. So let them choose after they have 2 or 3 things to look at.